It was a bright Tuesday morning at the upscale restaurant La Mer Bleu, where sunlight glinted through the tall glass windows and danced across polished marble floors. The scent of freshly baked bread mingled with soft piano music in the air. But beneath the calm surface, tension buzzed like static. Every server in the building was whispering nervously, glancing toward the private corner table reserved under a name that made their stomachs twist. Victoria Langford. Victoria wasn't just any customer, she was the Victoria Langford, a self-made billionaire known for her ruthless business tactics, impossible standards, and cold-hearted demeanor. In every place she visited, she left behind the same stories: waiters reduced to tears, managers apologizing profusely, and staff swearing never to serve her again. Rumor had it that she once had an entire kitchen staff replaced mid-dinner simply because her soup wasn't hot enough. And now, she was back. The restaurant's manager, Nora, wrung her hands nervously as she stood near the kitchen door. "Who's taking her table?" she asked, scanning the room. Every waiter suddenly found something fascinating on the floor. No one made eye contact. They'd all heard the same thing: she was rude, cruel, and impossible to please. Except one man didn't move. At the far end of the counter, Evan Keller, a tall, quietly determined single father, was double-checking an order. His uniform wasn't new, and the small ink mark on his left sleeve gave away how many long shifts he'd worked just to make ends meet. His 8-year-old daughter, Mia, was everything to him, the reason he woke up each morning and pushed through exhaustion. He needed this job. He couldn't afford another complaint, another lost shift, another scolding. But something in his eyes said he wasn't afraid either. When Nora hesitated, Evan looked up. "I'll take her table," he said calmly. The room fell silent. One of the newer waitresses whispered, "You don't have to do that, Evan. She's impossible." He gave a faint smile. "Maybe she just needs someone who doesn't treat her like a headline. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of standing up for what's right, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Spark. Your support helps us spread stories that touch hearts." When Victoria Langford arrived, the restaurant seemed to shrink around her. Her heels clicked like a metronome of authority. Her black designer suit was crisp, and her eyes, sharp, calculating, assessing everyone and everything in her path. The hostess smiled nervously, guiding her to her reserved table by the window. Victoria said nothing, only glanced at her watch as if every second wasted was an offense. Evan approached with practiced composure, tray balanced on his arm. "Good afternoon, Miss Langford. Welcome to La Mer Bleu. May I start you off with something to drink?" Her gaze lifted slowly, cool and dissecting. "Coffee, black. And make sure it's hot, not lukewarm like the last time I was here." "Yes, ma'am," Evan replied evenly. When he returned with her coffee, she took one sip, paused, and frowned. "Did you brew this fresh?" "Yes, I did, about 3 minutes ago." She looked him dead in the eye. "It tastes stale." He didn't flinch. "I can brew another if you'd like, but I assure you, ma'am, it was freshly made." For a long, tense moment she stared at him, as if trying to decide whether he was mocking her. But his calm was steady, respectful, no sarcasm, no fear. Finally she sighed and placed the cup down. "Fine, leave it." Evan nodded once and stepped back. That was the beginning. Over the next hour, Victoria found fault in nearly everything: the way her salad was arranged, the pacing of the courses, the music volume. But what unsettled her wasn't the food, it was him. Evan didn't react like everyone else did. He didn't grovel, stammer, or apologize for things beyond his control. He was polite, composed, and a professional. But there was also something gentler in the way he spoke, a quiet empathy that somehow made her feel seen. When her steak arrived, perfectly cooked, she pushed it aside after one bite. Too salty. Evan glanced at the untouched plate. "I can have the kitchen remake it right away." She lifted her gaze again, ready for the usual nervous twitch, but instead found a man whose eyes were patient, not submissive, just kind. "No, forget it." "As you wish," he replied, and began clearing the plate. Just as he turned to leave, she said sharply, "Wait." He stopped. Her voice softened slightly. "Do you ever get tired of pretending people like me aren't insufferable?" He paused for a second before answering. I think people act the way they do for a reason. Sometimes it's not about who they are today, it's about what they've been through before. Something flickered in her eyes, surprise maybe, or memory, but she didn't respond. Later, as she sipped her third cup of coffee, she noticed Evan kneeling beside a little girl at a nearby table, helping her reach her drink without spilling it. The child giggled, and he smiled with the kind of warmth that didn't belong in a world as cold as hers. That image, so simple and human, stirred something old inside her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. When he returned to check on her, she asked quietly, "That little girl, yours?" He hesitated, surprised by her tone. "Yes, her name's Mia. She's my everything. You bring your daughter to work?" "Only on days when the babysitter cancels. She sits in the back office and colors. She likes the smell of the bakery." Victoria nodded, but her jaw tightened. "You must be desperate if you can't afford proper childcare." Evan didn't take offense. "I suppose you could call it that. But I'm grateful for what I have. It's not perfect, but it's real." Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. Those words hit harder than he could have known. It's not perfect, but it's real. She looked away. What no one at La Mer Bleue knew, not even the gossip-loving hostess, was that Victoria Langford had once been very different. Before her empire, before the steel walls around her heart, there had been a time when she was married, deeply in love, and expecting a child. But life, in its cruel unpredictability, had stolen both her husband and unborn baby in a single car crash on a rainy night 15 years ago. She'd buried her grief beneath ambition, building her fortune from the ashes of her heartbreak. And though she had everything money could buy, nothing filled the hollow ache that lived behind her every sharp word. So when she saw Evan gently helping an elderly couple at the next table, when she noticed the tired kindness in his eyes as he carried on serving others despite exhaustion, it cracked something open in her that she'd long since sealed shut. After her meal, instead of storming out, she lingered. "Evan," she said as he approached with the bill, "do you enjoy this job?" He smiled faintly. "It's honest work. It lets me take care of my daughter. That's all I need. Most people want more." "I used to," he admitted, looking out the window. "But then I realized sometimes more costs you what matters most." Her breath hitched slightly. "You sound like someone who's lost something." He met her gaze. "Haven't we all? For the first time in